Right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the 15-minute fix. So, in this ever changing world, we want to give you some really dynamic tools for personal and professional development on the go. So, I am Kasha L. Gordon, and I will be your people consultant. I have a background in organizational leadership, and I help people in organizations meet their bottom line by aligning their people and giving them the right tools that they need. And with me today, I have.
My name is Kimberly Robinson, and I'm your process consultant. My background is in operations and project management, and I specialize in mobilizing people and organizations to achieve their mission and visions through tactical processes and strategies.
All right, so we're excited to bring you this information today. We'll go ahead and get started. So today's fix and tool is centered around goal setting. It's really exciting because a lot of what we're going to talk about in this series, you need to have concrete goals set. So goal setting really talks about the process of having benchmarks for achievement. That's really what goal setting is centered around. So I want to give you some preliminary considerations. And the first one is that goal setting is really a way to have that personal accountability, and it allows you to measure your benchmarks. So it helps you think about, where am I today? Where do I want to be? And then we're going to talk about how to get there. Goal setting is really important because there are studies that show that up to 92% of people that pick a common goal like a New Year's resolution don't meet that. But it's okay. Don't worry. We're going to help you get to that coveted 8% today with a few tangible processes. But let's think about also why that happens. The book, Four Disciplines of Execution, which is a really great resource, by the way, talks about how people become more profoundly engaged in what they're doing when at a glance, if they can see if they're winning or losing. So with visible goals, or a scoreboard of sorts, which your goals can act as, it really helps drive that energy so it doesn't dissipate. It gets your intensity up. It helps you stay on focus and stay on track with what you want to do. Because if not, a lot of times people go back to business as usual and don't meet their goals. So Kim, let's talk a little bit. How do we do that? How do we get there and really set those tangible, visible goals?
Absolutely. I want to start today with a familiar concept. SMART goals, we often hear a lot about, and I think it's a great acronym because it always helps us to go back to our toolkit and help us keep aligned as we're teaching these concepts. So, for those that may be familiar, I'll refresh your memory, and those that may be new to this concept, we'll go ahead and share what those are. So, SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and time bound. And if you're familiar with this concept, within each of the parts of those acronyms, it breaks down some really important concepts that I think are important here to keep us grounded in this concept of goal setting. We're also going to dig a little bit deeper to really look at how we can mobilize ourselves to go from just understanding how to set goals to actually achieving them. So if we look at specific, when we talk about setting goals, have you clearly identified what it is that you really want to accomplish? And that may seem like common sense, but sometimes we have these bright ideas, but haven't really dug down deep, understand what it is that we want to achieve, and more importantly, why we want to achieve it. Understanding your why is going to be really important because that's really what's going to keep your discipline and motivation going throughout this process. Because if we're going to be honest about it, it's not always easy, but if it's something that we really are passionate about, it's really what will keep us going. Then in that, when we talk about measurable, we want to identify how we actually measure success. Kasha talked a little bit about benchmarks and what we'll be looking for to track our progress. So how are we going to identify that? Something that we can consider as we're looking at goal setting is, New Year's resolution. I think that's probably something that we all set out to do at the beginning of each year. We write down goals, but how do we plan to measure those? That statistic that we shared is pretty staggering that 92% of people aren't fulfilling those goals. And I think a lot of it has to do with how we are planning to measure how we achieve that success and how we're tracking our progress along the way. Then we need to consider if that goal is actually attainable. If we set out at the beginning of every year to say that we want to set a different savings goal, whether that goal is just to save more so that we have more financial stability, or if we're saving towards a goal, how attainable is that with the resources that we have now? So if we make $30,000 a year, but we're planning to save 30,000 every month, that's not attainable with what we have now. But we can adjust that goal to be more attainable based on the resource that we have now, or we can set aside smaller goals to help us achieve that larger goal. Is it reasonable? And I think that that goes hand in hand with if the goal is attainable or not. Is it the right time to start this goal that we're setting out for? Have we really identified what resources that we will need? So if we go back to the example of saving the amount of money, so we know that we have income coming in, so we know it's reasonable to save a certain amount, but maybe the amount that we need to save is adjusted. Maybe we have a larger goal and we need to accelerate that savings by putting aside some other expenses that may be coming out of that. And then just consider what the broader scope is and how we're going to move towards that final goal. Last but not least, you want to ensure that every goal that you set has a time attached to it. While I think that, another reason that we may fall off of achieving goals is because maybe we don't give ourselves enough time to do them. At the beginning of every year, sometimes we're making brand new goals, but maybe 12 months wasn't enough to achieve the goals we had. So if we break those down into smaller goals and realize, hey, we need more time, that's okay. But we need to also give ourselves an opportunity to go back and reset if we're not meeting the benchmark in terms of time. So, Kasha, have you experienced this at all in your personal or professional life? What's a good example that we can use to help really bring this concept home?
Sure, and thank you. You brought up some good points. So maybe saving in increments so we can be a millionaire or a billionaire if that's our goal. But maybe it won't happen between now and the end of the year. For some people, maybe it will if you hit the lottery. But for many people in general, saving in increments, a little bit out of every paycheck with discipline, right? So maybe that's a good goal to start in increments.
Absolutely. And I think that really drives us into our next concept when we're talking about actually achieving the goal. So I think that, if we look at this in phases, setting the goal is one part, but the next part is really the work that we put in to actually get us from point A to point B and crossing those goals off our list. And personal accountability has a lot to do with that.
Absolutely.
So let's look at what ownership we're going to take in achieving our goals, right? What does personal accountability to mean to you? For me, it really has to do with, okay, what effort am I going to put in to make sure that this goal happens? We talked a little bit about resources. We talked about setting benchmarks. We talked about the need to possibly reset that goal in the future if needed. All of that is driven by the actions that you are taking to move yourself towards that goal.
I'd pause right there and say that so much of success, and success is relative, right? But success of what our goals are towards our goals starts with sacrifice. I like to say this. And so you talked about looking at our goals and seeing what we're putting in towards that in terms of accountability. There was a time where I was going to the gym every day, but on most days, I would reward myself for a job well done with stopping at my favorite cupcakery on the way from the gym. Shout out to the Cupcake Collection in Nashville, Tennessee. And so I was breaking even. And so on the one hand, I could say, man, why am I not meeting this goal? But was I really putting in what it took to really meet the fitness goal? It was that exercise plus diet combination.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to bring up when we talk about accountability, right? Have we identified some potential barriers to getting us to that goal? We're accountable for that. Some we understand that life will happen, and some of those we don't have control over, and we can account for that and adjust for that and flex to those needs. But for the ones that we can directly control, we absolutely need to plan for that.
So not that cupcakes are ever barriers, only joy, pure joy.
Right, but that we flex around that with our personal accountability, right? To say, hey, I may not be able to have a cupcake every day, but maybe once a week, if I complete 5 days a week of workout, then I can reward myself with that cupcake because that still fits into the plan that I want to achieve, which is, let's say, losing 1 to 2 pounds a week or to just be more physically fit. Right? So, really just understanding our goal there. And then how do you keep yourself accountable to that? I think that something that worked really well for me, I've done a couple of things if I have to think about my fitness journey is one, if I knew I was working out first thing in the morning, I would sleep in my workout clothes in some cases. That way, the only thing I had to do was get up, wash my face, my teeth, and go to the gym. Another thing is if my workouts were in the evening, I'd be sure to have my workout clothes in the car because I knew that there was a greater chance that if I went home, I likely would not be going out to go to the gym. So really just driving your own activities and what keeps you accountable to those goals. So, as you're seeing, that phase is, setting goals, driving your own personal accountability, and then those steps that we take to keep ourselves accountable.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'll add, if I can briefly, and we can talk about this actually another segment, so much of goal setting is about goal follow-up. And what I mean by that is not just setting the goal, but that accountability. I have an accountability partner. And some people meet with their accountability partners on a daily basis. A good friend and colleague of mine does. My accountability partner and myself meet weekly. And that is so important for my own accountability journey in my goal setting. So it's not just the setting, it's the follow through and having an accountability partner.
Yeah, and I think that as we think about benchmarks, that's important as well. That accountability piece, whether it's having an accountability partner or having regular check ins with yourself to say that I will review my goals within this amount of time to just check my progress and ensure that you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Great. Those are some great points. One of the other things I'll add about that personal accountability that I've done that's been helpful is I mentioned this at the beginning that so much of goal setting needs to be visible and tangible. So one of the things that I've done is a vision board that helps me in a very creative way and not daunting way. See the goals in front of me. I'm able to make it creative and fun and nice, like that scoreboard we talked about, and I can kind of see what I've met. And also I have my personal and professional journal that by year kind of sees the things that I want to highlight for that year without it being daunting. I just put a couple big highlighted points and try to take daily steps and weekly steps towards that.
I think that's a great point. A lot of people use vision boards and have found great success with them. And I think part of that is because having your goals in front of you where you can reference back with them, check your progress, look at your benchmarks is really, really important. That visual piece is, I think, very strong when we talk about steps to take to achieve your goals.
So we're talking today about goal setting, and it's a really exciting conversation because I think if we would really acknowledge it, we all have something that we want to do and someone who we want to be. So goal setting helps us decide, who have I said I want to become? Am I taking the right steps to get there? What do I want to do? Am I taking the right steps towards that? And so goal setting is so key in all of that. And so again, not just setting the goal, but that accountability and that follow-up. So thank you for those processes and those steps, Kim.
Absolutely. Last but not least, I think, we talk about achieving goals, but there's that inevitable time that we may not get to that goal or we may be lagging behind. And so we need to look at resetting. I think we've grazed on that a little bit, but I'd like to dig into that a little more just so that we are, being clear that if goals aren't setting and achievement is not always on the up and up, is some downside.
Sure. I tried to give up rice once, and I'm a girl from the South. That did not end well. Reset. Please talk to us about resetting.
Yes. So I think that number one, it's important to own and accept that resetting and not achieving or that failure is a part of the process. It's a natural part of the process. It happens. For every success story, you're going to find a story where someone had to pause, reset, regroup, sometimes just start over from scratch. And we have to own that and learn how to overcome that. But in that process, it's not about staying in that failure, right? We're looking at evaluating what went wrong, taking ownership for the steps that we need to take to move past and to the next level and to move forward and to continue that goal, as well as, just keeping ourselves encouraged that this is not the end. And it's okay that if our goals have to change.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sometimes we need to change how we're addressing the goal. Sometimes we need to change the goal itself if that goal is not really what we need at that time in our life, right? Or ever. So that's a great point. And sometimes we just need to reset altogether. But to your point, evaluate why it didn't work. So I like to coach
Absolutely.
people in business on the concept of failing forward. So failure, as you said, is not the be all end all, but what did I learn from it? What am I going to do differently to meet my goal? Right?
Absolutely.
So that's a great point. Sometimes you just need to reset or look at it differently. So thank you for that. I'll give the people a challenge in our last few minutes, Kim. Let's give them something to think about for the week. So our challenge for you all is going to be to set a SMART goal. I want you all to set a SMART goal, really be thinking about what that is for you. Why are you setting that goal? Then set the goal and then start working towards that accountability, moving towards it. And we want you to make it visible and tangible. So tell us about the creative ways that you're doing that. Please circle back and share with us. You can find us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, so you can reply to the comment section of this video, but please tell us how your goals are going and what goals you're setting for yourself. And we're looking forward to following up with you all. So thanks,
We'd
Kim,
love
for joining me and telling us how we can goal set and really begin to meet our goals in this space of our
absolutely
journey.
We'd love to hear it. And, one thing that I just want to point out, I know sometimes we like to wait for the beginning of the year, the beginning of the month. It's okay to start at any time. So let us hear what new goals you're starting. Let us know how we can help you achieve those goals. And we look forward to seeing you back here to talk about other tools in the future.
Absolutely. We'll see you all on the next 15-minute fix. Have a great day.
Bye
Thanks.
bye.